Thus, both stubborn determination and anger, when turned against one's own kilesas, give one a firm basis and strength, and they help one to finish this work without hindrance. So the wisest of men all praise those who triumph over themselves, saying that this is supreme, and far better than being triumphant over other people or things of any kind. As the Dhamma saying goes, Atta havedjatang sayo, to purify oneself is the most excellent thing. Therefore, stubborn determination and anger directed against one's own kilesas is the first stage for someone who would reach the level of those who have triumphed over themselves with complete fulfillment. Chapter 12. A short biography of Venerable Ajaan Khao. While writing about stubborn determination and anger at some length, we thought how it would be good to relate the story of one Thotanga Kammartana Bhikkhu, who was a follower of Venerable Ajaan Mun in the middle period of his teaching. For this is a story that illustrates the Dhamma teaching about stubborn determination and anger when directed against one's own kilesas. This bhikkhu was Venerable Ajaan Khao, and he was strongly imbued with both of these factors in his practice of Dhamma, and had them up to the end of his life. Venerable Ajaan Khao had a very resolute character, and liked to put his whole strength into whatever he did. He had been like this since he was a layperson, and when he was ordained he carried these characteristics over with him, and the longer he was ordained in Buddhism, which is a true religion and teaches people to act truly in whatever they do, the more he felt impressed by the principles of Dhamma. It seems that before he was ordained he had a wife and family, but he became disillusioned and weary with the round of samsara, and resolved to train himself so as to attain nibbana in this life unless he died in the meantime. Therefore, as soon as he was ordained, he went searching for an acharya who was fully conversant with the ways of inward meditation, citta bhavana. Before he went the way of the practice of kammartana, it seems that he had many things which disturbed him and acted as a discouragement and an obstacle, things which came from practically everybody he met, both from lay people and bhikkhus. All of them said that nowadays it was beyond all possibility to attain the path, fruition, and nibbana, and that it was long past the era when this could be done. That however rightly and properly one were to practice the way of the Dhamma and Vinaya, one would not be able to attain the result of reaching the goal as one hoped to. That the practice of meditation makes people mad, and whoever wants to go mad should go out and practice it. That if one wants to be a good person like we villagers, one should not drive oneself mad by going the way of kammartana. That in this age there are no Thutanga kammartana bhikkhus, apart from those who sell magic yantras, mantras, methods of magic, lockets which have magic properties, magic potions for influencing others, ways of making people impervious to bullets and knives, knowledge of auspicious times, and astrology. But that as far as finding Thotanga kammartana bhikkhus who actually practice the way of Thotanga, there were none left nowadays, that he must therefore not waste his time and tire himself to no purpose, for to get to a state of ease and happiness in that way was impossible. These were some of the many obstacles which blocked the path of those who wanted to practice the way of the Thotangas in those days. But Venerable Ajaan Khao was not prepared to listen to any of them, although he did not object or argue with them, for it would not have been useful to either side. But deep within himself he considered that these people and these acharyas are not the owners of the Buddhist religion. They are not the owners of the path, fruition, and nibbana, nor have they any power to make anyone go mad such that I could believe what they say. I have faith only in the Lord Buddha, in the Dhamma, and in the Sangha of Savaka Arhants as being truly worthy within the triple world. Those who spoke, trying to persuade me and to stop me, so that I would not go the way of kammartana and practice its various methods, are not amongst those who are truly worthy at all. Just by looking at their behavior and manners which they display, one can know whether they are truly wise or fools, and generally what their characteristics are like. Therefore, their objections and their wanting to stop me are things which would be a waste of time for me even to consider. So now I must go away to practice the way of Kammartana as soon as I can, without considering anything else, and I must search for true things, which accord with the basic principles of Dhamma which have been handed down to us. This I must do until I reach the absolute limit of my strength and ability. And if this Kammartana bhikkhu, which in this case is myself, should chance to die, then I willingly give my life and entrust myself to the supreme Dhamma. When he was ready to set out on his Tudanga wanderings, there were at the same time many lay people and all the other bhikkhus gathered together in the monastery. And just before he went, he spoke in truth from his heart to those who had tried to stop him, so as to leave no doubt as to his intentions, saying, "When I have gone from here, unless I can teach myself to attain the ultimate level of Citta and Dhamma, I shall not return to show my face amongst you again. I am ready to die for the sake of knowing and seeing into Dhamma with clarity and insight, but not for anything else. Please remember this that I have said, just in case I have the right characteristics to enable me to return and meet you again, and you will not have forgotten. So the only likelihood of my meeting you again will be in such circumstances, as I have already said." He said this at a time when there were many people, both highly respected acharyas and lay people from his village who had faith in them as being very wise and learned, all of them trying to stop him going away. He said, "At that time my heart seemed so strong it could crush a diamond into powder in an instant, and it seemed as if I could leap into the sky and walk about up there for all of them to see. This was probably due to pride and high spirits in my heart, as if it was shining out brightly for all those people to see and telling them, 'See here the diamond radiance in this heart, can't you see it? Are you all stupid enough to disparage me, saying that I will go mad by delving into strange things? My heart is not in the same sphere as all of yours, such that you can gather it up into your clan to die worthlessly in the way a dog dies. I am not prepared to die in the way that all of you would lead me to go towards death right now, for I intend to die in the way that the Lord Buddha taught us, by not leaving any seed of becoming remaining whatsoever. I have already died in your way countless times, so that it is impossible to tell in how many cemeteries I have ended my days. But although I may not be able to know this with my own higher knowing faculty, jnana, I have faith in the Lord Buddha and his teaching, for his higher knowing faculty was supreme and unequaled." As soon as he was ready, he said farewell, and took his leave of all the acharyas and learned people, and walked away through a large crowd of lay followers. He then set out for Tatpanom on foot, through forest and thick jungle, following paths worn by people and buffalo carts, for in those days there were no roads, not even the roughest dirt roads, but only a footpath. There were also many wild animals of all sorts in large numbers throughout the forest, with plenty of elephants and tigers everywhere, because there were no villages and not many people about as there are nowadays, with people and villages everywhere. The forest was also the original true forest, and there was real danger that if one lost one's way, one would have no food and may die in the forest, for often one could walk all day without meeting anyone or seeing any sign of habitation. Venerable Ajaan Khao walked through the forests and jungles until he reached Tatpanom, and from there he walked on to Udon Thani, and thence up to Nong Khai, searching for Venerable Ajaan Mun, whom he learnt was spending the Vassa, the rains period, in the district of Thabo. I was only able to spend a short time training with him, before he went away from us to Chiang Mai and disappeared into silence, he said. Then I felt a sense of hopelessness for a while, because I had no teacher to teach and lead me. But when I heard that Venerable Ajaan Mun had gone to stay and practice the way in the Chiang Mai district, I set out to follow him by wandering in the Tudanga Kammartana way, going along the bank of the Mekong River until I reached the province of Chiang Mai. Then I wandered about in the various districts of Chiang Mai with peace and happiness. The places where Venerable Ajaan Khao stayed and practiced were deep in the forests and hills and far away from any villages. At the same time, Venerable Ajaan Mun was also wandering about in that area, but it was not easy to find him, because he always liked to take off on his own away from his colleagues, and he would not readily let anyone meet him. However, Ajaan Khao went on following him relentlessly, until finally he managed to meet him and to receive genuine instruction and training. But Venerable Ajaan Mun would not let anybody stay with him, for he liked to live alone. Venerable Ajaan Khao said that he always tried to stay close by Venerable Ajaan Mun, so that he could go and see him and learn from him when it was necessary. Whenever he went to him to discuss and learn about any aspect of Dhamma, Venerable Ajaan Mun had metta for him, and taught him to the utmost of his ability, without holding back or hiding anything. But he would never let anybody stay with him. However, Ajaan Khao said that he was quite content that Venerable Ajaan had metta for him, and taught him at those times when it was necessary for him to go and ask questions of him. Then, once he had cleared up his problems, he paid his respects and left to go and practice what he had learnt on his own. He was thus going back and forth quite often. When he had stayed there for a long time, for some years, Venerable Ajaan Mun very kindly let him stay for the Vassa period with him. Ajaan Khao was so glad and so happy when Venerable Ajaan Mun told him that he felt as if he could float in the air, for after trying for so many years he had at last succeeded. From then on, he stayed regularly with Venerable Ajaan during the Vassa. The practice and development of his Chitta Bhavana, his meditation, seems to have gained strength steadily after he went to stay in the Chiang Mai district, and with a skilled teacher to guide and teach him continually, his heart seemed as if it was about to leap up into the sky, so strong was his happiness and contentment in the Dhamma that arose in his heart. No longer was there any unhappiness, lack of good cheer, or sadness due to instability of heart, sometimes up and sometimes down, as happened when he was staying in other places. From day to day his heart steadily progressed both in samadhi and in wisdom, and he became engrossed in striving day and night without ever becoming satiated. A large elephant pays him a visit. At one time, Venerable Ajaan Khao was spending the Vassa period in the same place with another bhikkhu. Late one night it was very quiet, and he was sitting in meditation in a small hut. At the same time there was a large elephant whose owner let it loose to wander in the forest and find its own food in that area. He did not know where it had come from, but it slowly walked closer towards the back of his hut. Right behind his hut there was a large boulder blocking the way, so the elephant could not get close up to him. When it got to the boulder, it stretched out its trunk into the hut until it touched his clod and the mosquito net above his head while he was sitting in meditation. The sound of its breathing while it was sniffing him was loud, and he felt it cool on his head, while his clod and mosquito net swung back and forth. Meanwhile the Ajaan sat repeating the Parikamma Buddho, putting everything he had got into it and entrusting his heart and life to the genuine Buddho, not having anything else to rely upon. The large elephant then stood there quietly for about 2 hours, as if it were waiting to catch him when he moved, ready to tear him to pieces. Once in a while he heard its breath sniffing him from outside the mosquito net. When it finally moved, it drew back and walked to the western end of his hut, and reached into a basket of sour tamarinds at the side of a tree, which lay people had brought him to clean the lid of his bowl, and started to eat them, making a loud noise, crunching them up like they were delicious. Ajaan Khao thought, "Those tamarinds for cleaning my bowl lid are going to be cleaned out, and there will be none left for sure. If the owner of this big belly comes to the end of them and cannot find any more, it is sure to come into my hut and find me and tear me to bits. So I had better go out and speak to it and tell it some things that it should know, because this animal knows the language of people quite well, since it has lived with people for a long time. When I go out to speak with it, it will be more likely to listen to what I say than to be stubborn and difficult. If it is stubborn and belligerent, it will probably kill me. But even if I don't go out and talk to it, once it has eaten all the tamarinds, it is bound to come this way and find me. If it is going to kill me, there is also no escape, because it is late at night and it is too dark for me to see where I am going." Having come to this decision, he left his small hut and stood hiding behind a tree in front of it and started to speak to the elephant, saying, "Big brother, your small brother would like to say a few words to you. Please listen to what I have to say to you now." As soon as the elephant heard the sound of his voice, it went completely still and quiet without making a move. Then Ajaan Khao spoke to it in a mild, persuasive manner, saying, "Big brother, you have been brought up by people who have looked after you at their homes. Until now you have become fully domesticated. You are thus fully aware of the ways of people, including their language which they talk to each other, and which they have used to teach you for many years. You know all these things very well, in fact even better than some people know them. Therefore you, big brother, should know the customs and laws of people, and you should not just do anything that you feel like doing as it suits your fancy, because in doing some things, even though they suit your own inclinations, if they are also contrary to the ways of people and you upset people, they may harm you, or depending on what you do, they may even kill you. For people are far more intelligent than all other animals in the world, and all of them fear people more than any other animal. You, big brother, are also in subjection to people, so you should pay respect to people who are more clever than yourself. If you are even a little bit stubborn or difficult, they beat you on the head with a hook, which is painful, and if you are very bad, they will probably kill you. Please don't forget what your little brother has taught you with sympathy for you. And now I will give you the 5 sila, for your little brother is a bhikkhu. You should keep them well. Then when you die, you will go to a state of happiness, and at least you should be born as a human being with merit and the virtue of Dhamma in your heart. But if you are born higher than that, you may go to the heaven realms or Brahmaloka, or higher still, all of which are far superior to being born as an animal like an elephant or a horse, which people use to draw carts or to drag logs about while being beaten with whips, all of which is nothing but torment and trouble throughout one's life, until one dies without having any chance to get free from this burden, which is such as you have to put up with at present. Big brother, please listen carefully and make a true resolve to accept the moral precepts. They are firstly, Paṭipadā. You must not kill people or animals deliberately by using your strength and ability to do so, and also you must not maltreat or oppress others, whether people or animals, for to do these things is evil. Secondly, Adinādana. You must not steal or take things for yourself which belong to others, and which others are keeping in reserve for their own use, such as the tamarinds in that basket which Big Brother was eating up just now. They were given by people to me for cleaning the lid of my bowl. But I do not take offense at this, for I don't want you to make any evil kamma at all. I just mentioned it to show how it was something which had an owner. If things such as that are not given to you, you should not eat them, nor should you walk over them and trample them down and damage them. Thirdly, game sumiccācara. You must not have sexual intercourse with any animal which has a mate, for this would be wrongdoing. If you have sexual intercourse, it should be only with one who has no mate, no owner, for this is not wrongdoing. Fourthly, musāvāda. You must not lie or deceive. Let your actions and behavior be true and straightforward, and not deceitful such that they give a wrong impression and fool others, which would be wrong and evil. Fifthly, sirameraya madzapamadarthana. You must not take anything which causes intoxication or drunkenness, such as alcoholic liquors. To do so is wrong and evil. You must keep these precepts, for if you don't, you can fall into hell when you die, and there you will have to put up with great suffering for long periods of time, for aeons, before you reach the end of the kamma that led you to hell and you can rise out of it. But even after getting free from hell, there would still be the remainder of your evil kamma which would lead you to life after life as a ghost, a demon, or an animal, suffering the results of the evil kamma you made, before you could be born as a person, which is very difficult to attain because of the evil kamma which oppresses you and holds you down. Therefore, big brother, you must remember well what I have said and practice what I have taught you. Then you will get free from life as an animal, and will be born as a human being, or a devata, in your next life, for sure. That is all I have to teach you, and I hope that Big Brother will be glad to do these things. Now you may go about to find a place to rest, or something to eat as you feel like it. Your younger brother will now go and practice his meditation, and he will share some of his virtue with you and spread out metta to his big brother, so that you will never be lacking in happiness. Now, elder brother, it is time for you to go elsewhere." It was most remarkable that for the whole of the time that he was teaching this large elephant, it stood absolutely still, as if it were made of rock. It did not fidget or move at all, but stood motionless until he had finished speaking. Then, as soon as he had given the sila and his blessings, and told it to go, it began to move its huge body, making a noise like an earthquake, while it drew back, turned around, and went off. It walked away in a deliberate, thoughtful manner, as if it truly understood everything it had heard. Thinking about this incident, I cannot help feeling a lot of sympathy for one whose body was that of an animal, but whose heart was that of a human being, able to appreciate the teaching on good and evil, which it had received without being obstinate or arrogant, as one would expect with such a large and strong animal. In fact, it was very mild-mannered, and appreciative of the moral teaching throughout. And as soon as Venerable Ajaan told him it was time to go, he immediately turned around and went away. While listening to his teaching, it also listened attentively until it almost stopped breathing, just like those who listen to a Dhamma talk given to bhikkhus with full respect for Dhamma. For these two reasons, it makes one think and fills one with wonder, for it is not only that the elephant was an animal and was interested in listening, for if any people had been there listening, they would have been enraptured and carried away by the talk of Venerable Ajaan Khao, for he used the most sweet and honeyed language with such skill that it would be rare to find anyone else who could do this, and equally rare to listen to it. So the elephant listened with rapt attention, not fidgeting or even moving its ears until he had finished giving his Dhamma talk and told it to go, when it obeyed and went to find something to eat, in the manner of a rare and noble animal. It makes one reflect even more deeply how, whether human or animal, if something is experienced which brings satisfaction, it tends to make their hearing clear and lucid, and their sight bright as though the night becomes day. Then the heart is in a state of absorption with piti, satisfaction and joyful gladness, in the enchanting words of the type which are always desirable, and of which one can never have enough, because they are things which are greatly valued by the heart. Venerable Ajaan Khao went on flattering the big elephant for quite a long time, until he was fascinated and mesmerized by the sweet, mild words, the flavor of which were heard deep inside. For example, "Big brother, you are very strong, whereas I am small and my strength cannot compare with yours, so I feel afraid of you." Such flattery is one of the most powerful ways of enchantment, and he talked like this until the great elephant went into a trance while standing there, oblivious of everything else. It would have even been glad to disgorge the sour tamarinds that it had swallowed, to put them back in the basket for its charming little brother, without keeping even the taste of them, for this act was a disgrace to the dignity of an intelligent and noble elephant, a walking store of virtue. Once its belly was full of Venerable Ajaan's teachings, it went off to find food, and never again came to bother him throughout the rest of the Vassa period, going to other places to find food. And this was quite remarkable, that the heart of an animal should have so much understanding. After the Vassa, Venerable Ajaan also went away wandering wherever he felt it would be good to go, for the purpose of practicing the way of Dhamma, ever higher and higher. His way of practice. Venerable Ajaan Khao was an earnest Gammatana bhikkhu who was characteristically resolute and courageous, and whatever he did truly. When he was staying in the hills, he got the lay supporters to make up 3 places for walking Jankama. The first one he used for giving homage, puja, to the Lord Buddha, the second to the Dhamma, and the third to the Sadhaka Sangha of the Lord. He would walk Jankama on these 3 paths at different times of the day, according to a fixed schedule which he kept to quite strictly. As soon as he had finished his meal in the morning, he would go and walk Jankama on the first path, paying homage to the Buddha, and he would continue until about midday. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he would start walking on the path paying homage to the Dhamma, and continue until 4 p.m., when it was time to sweep the grounds and bathe. When he had finished doing all his normal and necessary duties, he would start to walk Jankama on the path for paying homage to the Sangha, and go on until 10 or 11 p.m., after which he would rest, sitting in meditation practice for a while, and then lie down and sleep. As soon as he woke up, he would start doing his samadhi meditation practice again until dawn, when he walked Jankama until it was time for him to go on Paṭipadā. Some nights he would sit in meditation practice the whole night without getting up from his seat until dawn. Even normally when he sat in samadhi meditation, it seems that his heart was very bright after he had finished. But at those times when he sat all night in meditation, the material world disappeared entirely from his awareness, and even his physical body seemed to have gone as well. It was altogether a most remarkable and wonderful thing, right from the time that he sat down to examine painful feeling, dukkha vedana, until it died away and ceased, due to his examination of the citta taking it deep into a subtle and intimate state of calm. At this point, the only thing that was apparent to him was knowing, just this alone, which brought to him a most subtle and gentle calm and happiness, which was quite indescribable. There were no supporting conditions, aramana, present in the citta, however subtle. This means the same thing as saying that the elements of existence, the lokatatu, disappeared simultaneously with the disappearance of the supporting conditions. This state remained until the citta drew up and out of it, after which the supporting conditions which were the usual companions of the citta returned gradually, bit by bit. Afterwards, he would continue working at his practice in the normal way. When the citta has integrated and gone down into a state of calm, even though it remains in this state for several hours, there is no feeling of it being a long time, such as it would normally appear to be. This must surely be the state of eka citta eka dhamma, just within the heart itself alone, without there being anything else to form a duality. When it arises out of this state, it is then possible to know that the citta integrated into a state of calm and remained there for so long, for so many hours. He said, "On whatever night the citta went into meditation practice without any difficulty and attained calm easily, even if I sat the whole night through in meditation, it seemed as if I had only been sitting for 2 or 3 hours. There was nothing to oppress or obstruct it." Venerable Ajaan Khao tended to encounter dangerous situations in connection with elephants more than anything else. He said, "Soon after the previous encounter, I again met another large elephant in the Mepang district of Lambang province, and this time I was almost unable to save myself. This one was a true wild forest elephant, and not one that had lived with and been looked after by people like the previous one. It was at night, and Ajaan Khao was walking Jankama, when he heard the sound of it going through the jungle, making a lot of noise, breaking branches and crashing about. It was coming towards him and getting closer every minute, and there was no time for him to run away from it. Then he thought how normally forest elephants are afraid of fire, so he quickly left the Jankama path and went to get all the remaining candles that he had from the place where he was staying, and stuck them into the ground all along by the side of his Jankama path, and lit them as fast as he could. To any person who saw it, this would be a beautiful, peaceful sight, but it is hardly possible to say how an elephant would react to it. Then, as soon as he had finished setting up the candles, the elephant had almost got there, giving him no possible way of escape. All he could do was to set up a true resolve, satya adirthana, that the supernatural power of the Lord Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha may come and help him and protect him, a servant of the Lord Buddha, against this huge elephant. By that time the elephant had got there, and it stopped about 2 meters away from him at one side of his Jankama path, and stood there without a move, its 2 ears spread out. It was clearly visible in the candlelight, and he said that its huge body was as large as a hill. Meanwhile, Ajaan Khao started walking Jankama, going back and forth, as if he was not concerned about the elephant at all, although in fact he was very afraid of it, so that he could hardly breathe. When he first saw it walking towards him so strong and aggressive, all that he could think of was to take hold of the Buddho symbol and to hold on to it tenaciously, just thinking of this as the one who guarantees life. But apart from this, he did not think or see anything. He would not even let his thoughts go out to this giant elephant as large as a hill, which had come and was standing by the side of his Jankama path, for he was afraid that his chitta may slip away from Buddho, which was his best refuge at that time. Buddho and the chitta then became one and the same thing, until the heart lost all fear, and there remained just knowing and the repetition of Buddho, which were blended into one. Meanwhile the elephant just stood there like a mountain, looking at him without fidgeting or moving, its ears spread wide as if to indicate that it was not ready to accept any friendly advances. This accorded with the manner in which it walked towards Venerable Ajaan when it first approached him, for it came straight for him without hesitating, and it acted as if it intended to crush him and kill him. But when it reached him, it just stood there like a lifeless dummy. As soon as the chitta and Buddho went inward and came together, becoming one and the same thing, Ajaan Khao lost all fear. In fact, he became positively bold and daring, so that he could have walked right up to the elephant without the least feeling of fear. But he thought about it and realized that to walk right up to such a wild jungle animal would be an act of carelessness based on conceit, which one should not do. So he kept on walking Jankama fearlessly with bold courage, in competition with the standing elephant, as if there was nothing that could happen that would be any danger to him. From when it first came, the elephant must have stood there for about an hour, by which time the candles, which were long and long-lasting, were almost finished. Some had already gone out, and the rest would not last much longer, when the elephant backed away, turned round, and walked off by the way it had come. After which it went looking for food in the forest around that area, where it could be heard breaking branches and treading on dead wood, making a lot of noise. This was the first time that Venerable Ajaan Khao saw for himself the extraordinary power of the chitta and of Buddho, for he was in a critical situation without any way to escape or hide, and there was no alternative but to face up to it and use these methods. But even if he had died, he would have had to accept it, for he had no choice. It seems that this experience made him fully confident that whatever happened, if the chitta and Buddho, or its equivalent, had become intimately blended together in a natural way, nothing could possibly do any harm to him. He said that he became absolutely convinced of this, and has remained so ever since. It was also very strange how the elephant, instead of becoming wild and violent when it reached him, just stood there, its ears spread wide, apparently quite calm, watching him walking Jangama back and forth without getting tired of it. Then, once it had seen enough, it drew back, turned round, and went its way searching for food, its manner showing that its stomach had lost all its aggression. One cannot help feeling sympathy for this elephant any less than for the previous one, which was a domesticated animal and knew the language of people quite well. But this elephant had been a forest animal since it was born, and it must have been over 100 years old. As it was most unlikely that this one would know the language of people, Venerable Ajaan did not speak to it at all, and he just went on walking Jankama. Also, unlike the first elephant, this one did not have a halter around its neck, and the villagers later on told him that it was a wild elephant, and had been a leader of the pack for a long time. But why it should have been wandering about on its own at this time, nobody could say. Maybe it just left the pack for a short time. Even after the elephant had gone, the Acharya went on walking Jankama with wonder in his heart, while realizing the value of that elephant which had come and helped his chitta to see the wonderful nature of Dhamma in connection with fear and fearlessness. For this time it enabled him to get to know about it with absolute clarity, leaving no room for any doubt at all. Therefore it would not be wrong to look on this elephant as being like a Deva elephant, or like one sent by the Devas, because normally forest elephants are not used to people, nor do they act peacefully towards them, unless they are truly overpowered and cannot attack, when they will quickly flee and try to escape and save themselves. But this one, Venerable Ajaan said, came walking straight towards me, with its eyes wide open of its own free will, without anyone compelling it in any way at all, and it came right up close, well within the light of the candles that I had set in place. But it did not come up and squash me or tear me to pieces, nor was it startled and frightened by the fire of the candles, for it did not run away into the forest to save itself from the fire. Instead, after walking up to me in a bold, imposing manner, like it was the boss, it just stood there for over an hour, not aggressively, nor afraid, after which it went away in a normal manner. This is what made me think about this animal with amazement, so that I have not forgotten it to this day. From that time on, wherever I went wandering, and wherever I stayed, I was not afraid, because my heart had full faith in Dhamma from then on. For as it says in the Paṭipadā, Dhamma guards those who practice the way, and it certainly does not discard them, letting them die buried in mud or water like an old log of wood.